Marijuana plant is a hemp plant, and it's used for many other things than just smoking.
An acre of hemp produces 4 times as much paper as an acre of trees.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kendra Miller. I am the owner of Cannabis Law. I've been in this space for about 9 years, going on 10 years. I also sit on the National Board of Directors of NORML. That's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I've been on the board for about 7 years, and then in January of this year, I was just elected to the vice chair of the board, the first woman and person of color to ever hold that position. Thank you. I'm also the president of the Cannabis Law section of the Beverly Hills Bar Association. So I practice corporate law and civil litigation. So I help businesses form. I help them get on the track to legalization, but then I can also, like Matt does, I can sue people when necessary.
You want her on your team, in other words.
So how I got to cannabis. In the words of Dennis Perone, all use is medical use. Yeah. So to that end, I have been a medical consumer for about 30 years. I started out practicing corporate law and civil litigation in Hollywood. I represented independent producers of television and film. So I had an office in Hollywood on a studio lot, and I decided to open up my second location about 9 years ago of my entertainment firm in San Francisco. And that's when I moved into Pier 5 law offices with Tony Serra and a lot of other very well-known marijuana criminal defense attorneys. And it was at that time that I decided to bring my corporate and civil litigation skills to what was then a movement. We weren't quite an industry yet, we were still a movement, okay? And I was helping medical patients form collectives and cooperatives. But being an attorney is one thing, you know, like that's what I do during the day. What's most important and what's in my heart is that I'm an activist, okay? So as soon as I opened up Cannabis Law, I looked around to see what kind of organization I could associate with. And my business manager at the time found NORML Women's Alliance, which at that time was just a project of the NORML Foundation. And the issue was that women were far behind than our male counterparts in trying to legalize marijuana. You know, women started alcohol prohibition and we also ended it, right? So it would only make sense that women would be the tipping point to end federal cannabis prohibition. And that's where I focus. As a result of my activism and working with the NORML Women's Alliance, which was a foundation, I got unanimous approval of the board, my first year on the board, to start my own separate corporation, NORML Women's Alliance, by women for women. And that's where I primarily have been focused on my activism, right? So what do I like to smoke? I like joints, right? I smoke bowls, you know? And I've recently, because of my clients, have learned how to dab. I used to be one of these, you know, joint snobs who was like, I don't dab, right? But then somebody taught me how to do it because it's about education, right? So someone sat me down, taught me. Now, you know, look, I still am a little nervous about being high with a torch, okay? But thanks to technology, you know, I can now put my dab in a pen and do it that way. So I thank you for coming out tonight because you fuel us as activists. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. And I feel you on that, like, scared of the dab thing. I wasn't into it until someone taught me how to do a low temperature, one that really allows the terps to shine. And I was like, I like this. Right. Other than that, I'm just like a straight up flower girl. I'm just, like kind of hippie-ish on that, and you can't tell. Anyways. All right. So something that I read last year, that there was a man named John L. Richmond who was a part of the Nixon administration, right? And he was the domestic policy chief. And they have him quoted saying that we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily and disrupting the communities, we can arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. We knew that we were lying. Did we know that we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. This is what we're navigating through. That was past policy. We are in a very new time period where California has done something so amazing, and actually it happened here in Oakland. The city council in Oakland, primarily Desley Brooks in Oakland, was courageous enough to put forth an equity policy. And San Francisco was courageous enough to also follow suit. Now we have Los Angeles also coming online, and we have Sacramento talking about language, and we have Vallejo potentially looking at things. So it's a brand new time period. And we cannot look at moving forward in this multi-billion-dollar industry. It's actually estimated to be that was last year. It is estimated to be an $8 billion industry in this next year. And we can't look at that without looking at the harm that it caused. And these equity programs actually create a pathway for those that were harmed on in the war on drugs. So, LaWanda, since you've been working very closely with Oakland, and they were the very first ones to come online, can you educate our audience about what it means to be a part of the equity program in Oakland?
Yes, my pleasure. So the equity program in Oakland, first you have to qualify as an equity applicant, and what that means is there's some criteria. There's residency requirements, an income requirement, and once you meet those requirements, then there's either a cannabis criminal requirement, or you have to live in a certain beat. So anyway, those are the general requirements to become an equity applicant. And the benefits of being an equity applicant is that you can be incubated by a general applicant for 1,000 square feet of free space for 3 years. Which is huge because real estate is a major barrier, as a lot of you may well know, and even getting your business up and running. So that's one of the benefits. And then you also will be provided with technical assistance. So that's where my team came in at. And then eventually there will be a loan program where equity applicants can apply for a 0% interest-free loan. And that's huge because capital was also the other big barrier in this industry, so real estate and capital. So the equity program really addresses both of those things, and good opportunity.
Thank you. Eugene, you're out in San Francisco. Can you educate us about what the San Francisco program looks like?
Yeah, similarly, Supervisor Malia Cohen was really influential in helping develop the equity program. So I just wanted to make sure I shouted her out. So our process to get verified is similar to Oakland, although it has some different criteria. So I think we learned a lot of lessons from Oakland and are still learning lessons from Oakland. But it did provide a fair amount of flexibility in how people got qualified. So one of the things that the supervisors agreed to do is create 6 different criteria and allow individuals to select 3 to qualify. So I'll tell you what those are. One is an income test, which you would have like below 80% of area median income. The second and third are related to criminal justice involvement. So not only could you be directly impacted by being arrested or convicted of a cannabis-related crime, but someone in your nuclear family could, so parent, sibling, or child. The fourth criteria is connected to housing insecurity, which is something that's really important in the Bay Area, but specifically in San Francisco. So housing insecurity evidenced by foreclosure, eviction, or revocation of housing subsidy. The fifth criteria, and I think it was the recognition of the kind of school to prison pipeline, is attending an SFUSD school for 5 years.
That's big.
And then the sixth criterion is related to living in a census tract below 17% poverty for 5 years. They don't have to be consecutive. So what our office does is actually verify you. We review the documents. We do that in partnership. We try to be really open and communicative with people as they're going through the process. I think that's really important to have someone that they can call. Our office tries to be really responsive. There are people in the audience who have been verified, who can kind of talk more about the process if people have specific questions. If you have specific questions about going through that process, you can definitely ask me. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. But I think it's important to kind of think about the issue from the process of activism, right? And so this idea that the city at least wanted to recognize, one, people who have been negatively and disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system, right? Two, to foster equitable access, right, to these opportunities that
Eugene,
we're
can
describing.
you move the mic closer to
Oh,
you?
yeah. To foster equitable access to these opportunities that we're describing, and to create priority processing in the permitting process, right? So to say, hey, we're going to recognize that you've been negatively impacted, and now we're going to make sure that you have the first opportunity to participate in this new space, right? And so thinking about that and making sure that's in the forefront of people who are both implementing the policy and are applying for the opportunity, I think is really important. But also to create a safe space in which people can feel comfortable coming into City Hall and having those conversations with us, because government has not always been really open, right? And thinking about persecution specifically related to this conversation can be a real barrier. And so trying to build that trust, I think, is an important part of the process.
How many people have applied for equity, to get verified as an equity applicant so far?
So we opened up the process about 6 weeks ago, and we've had about 400 people start the process, right? About 200 who have finished kind of submitting all their documents, and about 100 who have actually verified.
Okay. I was like, can we get someone to help with Eugene's mic?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So there are about 400 people who've actually started the process. Wow, I feel like
Here, someone. We have plenty of mics up here.
Sure. So about 400 people who've actually started the process, in which they log onto our website. You can go to officeofcannabis.sfgov.org, in which we've really tried to leverage the resources of our digital services team. So it's really a team effort, but you can start the process online and submit your documents for review. So about 400 people have started that process. About 200 people have actually completed it, and about 100 have been verified by our office.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
So Raven, you are an equity operator. So and an equity operator that has that's being incubated. So that's a very specific kind of portion of the equity program, because people can be general applicants or they can get incubated. Can you explain to us what an incubation partnership looks like, and how's that working out for you?
Awesome. Yeah. So incubation, as LaWanda mentioned, a part of the Oakland program is that your incubator provides you with 1,000 square feet, and they cover your security for 3 years. As mentioned, Community Gardens, we are licensed for delivery, non-storefront retail, and distribution. So we're being incubated by Kiva Confections and Jetty Extracts. Closer. There we go. Okay. So our incubation experience so far has been really great. I feel like we have found partners that have been committed to the equity program and who have really wanted to put their best foot forward and really help our businesses grow. I think our equity partners, our incubation partners, are putting the effort forth that the city of Oakland was hoping that incubation partners would put forth when they set forth their regulations. I feel like based upon the relationships I have with other equity applicants, everyone is not as lucky. I think that we are of some sort an exception. And I think that there are a lot of kind of shady practices happening and things like that. And so I think it's important that equity applicants are vocal, are activists. I think, it's so important that you are talking with the city and things like that. And I will say that the city of Oakland has been very receptive to our feedback. And I think it's just important that we keep coming at them and helping them reform.
Thank you. And a little follow-up question for you as well is for other people that are trying to follow in the footsteps that you've already done with forging an incubator partnership as an equity applicant. What advice would you have for them forging an incubator partnership?
Definitely. I would say definitely have your own kind of business plan together. Nothing too intense, like where it's like a whole drawn out thing, but I think you should have a really good idea about what you want out of your business, what you want out of the industry before you go and find your incubation partner. I think it's really important to like follow through, and realize that the relationship is mutually beneficial, and both partners in the agreement should feel that way. And if it ever feels like, you're at a disadvantage, you're not at a disadvantage as an equity applicant. And so you should never feel like that. And if you feel like that in a relationship, you should take a second look at it.
Thank you for that. That was super enlightening because I know a lot of people need to hear that because it feels like especially if you need to take on financial partnership, it feels like you're at mercy to everybody.
Yeah, and you're not. It's mutually beneficial, so it should feel like that.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So Ramon, you were shaking your head. You're like, yes, there are some issues out there. Can you name for us some of the challenges that you've witnessed and experienced in trying to figure out what partnerships could look like for you and for others that you've been working with?
So I've worked with a lot of equity applicants in the last couple of years. I threw a lot of informational meetings just trying to get out into the community. We actually threw mixers in West Oakland, East Oakland, actually trying to attack that community. And not a lot, but I've had a handful of equity applicants that were incubated, that went through the process, and like you said, had a negative experience where the incubators were not providing this technical assistance. They kind of gave them space and then go to business and kind of use them. And so I think we knew this could happen in the industry, and so my attack on it was to educate as many equity applicants as possible as to what their rights are, as what they should expect from an incubator, and that way, like it's like any other part of our life, whether it's knowing what the cops can or can't do or anything else, you have to know the rules in order to play the game. And so it's important for us to educate ourselves and get as much of that information as possible so we know when we're being stepped on and when we're not, and what to expect. And like she said, a lot of the onus is on you as well to know what your business plan is and what your direction is, and to make sure that incubator is following in that same direction and is working together. So also the other part of that was having equity applicants understand that they may not know everything about the business, and sometimes it is better to form a partnership and group up and build that business into something that, like, 50% of nothing is nothing. But if 5 of you are you're all distributors and you want to build a network and you want to get distributing, and you all have limited resources, together you're powerful, because by combining those networks you have an actual network and resources that can actually compete, and through that way you build your brands, you build your companies, and from there you can build into more and more companies after that. So just understanding that those partnerships might be necessary because of those limitations, the access to space and capital.
True that. So, I mean, it's interesting because our old type of business model, it left us super siloed, right? And forming partnerships was not something that was common practice because you didn't want people to know what you were doing. You didn't want people to know how you were moving. You didn't keep records. You can't tell them what your numbers were in November and like how much your sales were and like, what your purchasing power was at that time period. It's like you didn't have those, like that language before. So we're gonna go down the line on this one because I know everybody has it a little bit different. You touched on it already, but I'm gonna go down the line from Matt and beyond. What kind of partnerships have you seen start to forge? What lessons are you pulling from the process that's happening right now? I know it's super loaded as a question, but we're going to get into this.
Really important legal concept called clusterfuck,
It feels that way.
It's been a challenge, you know, watching not just, you know, the culture clash. I've been thinking about it a lot because I'm really trying to figure out how to help folks, and I'm trying to get folks in the room and sit down and talk. And I mentioned it to you before,
Right.
about, you know, really communicating and reaching agreements. And I don't know, man, we're all shitty communicators. People don't know how to reach an agreement. You know, people don't really take the time and just sit and look at each other and go, okay, what's the expectations? You know, what's going to happen here? And they don't do it. You know, people are busy when they're texting. Oh yeah, I'll show up. Yeah, that's a good point on the, you know, deal point on the text. You know, 9%. Yeah, whatever. You know, and all this stuff. And it's like, come on, guys. You know, it's like our computers and phones have kept us from really looking at each other and sitting across from a room. And I think we just have to put those down and shut them off and spend some time together, get to know each other. Because the other thing is, there's a fair amount of disrespect that I'm seeing out there. You know, it's like, you know, it's not that the cannabis community didn't do things right. You know, in that these capitalists with all their money, you know, somehow like there's some fucking, you know, whatever, you know, screw it. You know, it's like, no, my cannabis people kept the damn thing alive for the last 50 years.
Right.
You know, and you're gonna have to actually teach respect, and you're gonna have to expect respect from people.
Yes.
And, you know, sure, there were different factors, you know, for cannabis people. You know, mainly you were trying to get through a season. Mainly you were trying to not get caught. You know what I mean? There were the business model was different. Okay? But it wasn't worse. And people need to understand. I've been training some of these investor types that are coming at me. I'm like, you can't talk about these people like that. You know, these are folks who, you know, who freaking suffered, you know, and got it to this point. We're here because people grew weed, you know, and dealt weed in the community and kept it alive. So I'm very much about the respect, and I'm trying to talk to people about it all the time, and my cannabis people, because, you know, they're all like, you know, there's attitude going the other way too, you know, and I think part of it is just
it goes
getting
both
like,
ways.
you know, let's you know, it's like, you know, this is a pretty diverse panel up here, you know, and that's part of what makes things better, and having diversity in our workplaces, and, you know, teaching people about what diversity means. It means something, you know. It means that we can finally get to a point someday where, you know, it's not going to matter what the color of skin is or what your genitals are or any of that shit. You know, it's just like, just you know, it's like, let's learn to work. But the communication skills, we all suck at communication.
All right.
So that's the big one.
Big one. Okay,
That's
so we're
big
going to
one.
mark that one down. So
Right.
one of the things that needs to happen better is communication skills.
In reaching agreement,
Okay.
understand what it means to reach an agreement. I'll give an example. Let me give you a quick example.
Okay, quick.
If I say to you, Nina, you want to meet tomorrow after follow up on this and talk about blah, 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 about your business at 2 o'clock down there at the, you know, down in Duarte or something. And you go like, yeah, man, let's do that. That's an agreement. You're like, that's clear. That's unambiguous. It's like we know it, and the next day, unless something happens to one of us, we're going to meet at 2. It's like super clear, super easy. That's a super clear, easy agreement. And you need to get everything like that, just like that. That's your goal. Everything clear. Everything clear.
Thank you. Yes. Lawanda, Kendra, did you want to follow up?
I have something to say on this issue, and just kind of to support what Matt was saying. Okay, look, the government is only going to do so much to create pathways for us to get into this industry. The rest is up to us. What we need is capital. Capital is just a fancy way of saying money, okay? We need financiers who are going to come in and finance equity businesses specifically, okay? What I'm seeing is I have a lot of general applicants, and I'm trying to encourage them to incubate or bring in an equity applicant. But what I'm hearing the prospective equity applicant say is, okay, great, you're gonna provide me with the space for a certain amount of time, but I don't have the money to get the business off the ground. What good is the space? Okay? We need to solve this problem. We need to go to our professional athletes, our hip-hop artists, our community, the general applicants. We need to set up funds. We need to go to venture capitalist companies. We need money.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have to do that ourselves. It's our community's responsibility. If we wait for the government to give us money, we're going to be waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay? So we need to be reaching out and creating funds that are formed for the specific purpose of funding equity businesses.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's a big reason why we can't even say that cannabis is reparations for anything, because it doesn't, there's no resources for any reparations of anything. The policy itself just allows a pathway to restore justice, but anything else coming forward is going to be up to us. I agree with you 110%. LaWanda, you've been working with the applicants and forging these partnerships. What have you seen as like different models and how that's been going?
So the best models I've seen are the ones where the cultivators are like, okay, I got all this product, I need to get it through the pipeline, I need to get it through the supply chain, so I want to incubate distributors because I need distributors in order to get my product to the retailer, duh. So basically, only reason why I'm saying duh is because a lot of people haven't figured this out yet. And they're stuck. They're stuck with a lot of product. And I'm like, well, the answer, the key to you getting your product, manufacturers or cultivators, whoever you are, is to forge partnerships, whether you're general or equity or not, with the people who can help you get your product through the supply chain. It doesn't do any good to have all this fabulous, great product that you're making and you're sitting on it, and it's not getting through to the people who need it the most. So that's where I see the partnerships really needing to happen.
Thank you. Right on. Awesome. Eugene. You're not really having, I mean, like, okay, so you're not actually having to do any work, like forging the partnerships. However, there is a tech tool that's out, right, for where the city has listed out equity applicants, right, because the equity applicants have opted in to being able to be listed, and then it makes it available for people that have money to find them. However, what is the vetting process that goes into the people that have money to get to the equity applicants?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've tried to do is create a framework for people to interact, right? So as, you know, as regulators, as people who are responsible for permitting, what we've tried to do is create a space in which people at least, we could make sure that they were negotiating in good faith with the possible threat of removing their permits if they weren't, right? So it was, you know, here's the carrot, right? In exchange for incubating someone, you get access to a permit. Well, the stick is, if we don't believe that you're acting in good faith, we can take that away, right? And so we tried to create regulations. They're like 4 or 5 pages long. If you're interested in reading it, you can go to our website and download it. But it really tried to create a loose structure for some of these agreements. Now, enterprising people who want to engage in bad faith opportunities are going to figure out ways around that. We're not naive about kind of capitalists and how markets work. But at least we want to figure out a way, if we see egregious examples, that we can at least hold people to be accountable, right? So that's one part of the process. I think to your question about the vetting process, so we've created the tool that you described, which is essentially the first step for becoming an equity incubator is for you to register your interest with the city, to tell us that you're interested in incubating someone. In San Francisco, the program works a little bit differently because in addition to offering rent-free space, you can also provide technical assistance, right? And so you have options. The priority processing is different given the options. We really wanted to make sure that given what we know about San Francisco and limited space, that was the highest priority if you were willing to incubate someone off-site. And so we built that into our process. And so we tried to learn the lessons of places that had gone before us to really try to tighten up some of these regulations and rules, right? And so the people who come after San Francisco and LA will be able to improve their process, right, if they're interested. So I think trying to really build that into the regulations while not being naive about the idea that they're bulletproof, right, to recognize that we're going to try to improve them over time and for people to be patient is how we've tried to kind of improve the process.
Thank you for that. So Raven, what were you, for you, when you were looking for a partnership, what was your criteria in looking for a partner as an equity operator?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like when we were looking for a partner, it was really early on. We actually met our first incubator, Kiva, at a mixer hosted by the city of Oakland, I want to say like last May. So it was like the first, I think, mixer the city hosted, and everybody was just kind of trying to figure it out. And it was kind of awkward, but we met them, so it was good. And so I feel like going in, we were really sure about what we wanted, and that's why I'm kind of describing to everyone, like, when you're looking for a partner, be sure about what you want, because it was kind of hard for us to call, especially because we were new to the cannabis industry, and so we hadn't had a lot of interaction with a lot of people in the cannabis industry in the first place, and so it was kind of like us kind of gauging people and understanding who they were kind of by talking to them and building a relationship, but it was more so us really understanding what we wanted from our business and finding people who wanted to help us further those goals, and luckily we were able to do that. And then I will say, in terms of like the partnerships we form, in terms of the things that we sell in our store, it's really important about like relationship building and things like that. I feel like that was alluded to earlier, but I feel like as a retailer, as a storefront, as customer facing, like we have a lot of power in the items that we carry in our stores, and the items that we sell to our customers, and at our dispensary, we take it really serious to understand, the owners of the products that we're selling in our stores, and making sure that we're supporting companies that are supporting programs like the equity program, are supporting good companies and things like that. And so we've learned that that's been really important.
Thank you. Kendra, can you describe to us what kind of paperwork and process that goes into place for a person to actually be a legitimate cannabis business, and what would those estimated costs be for someone that's trying to start up?
So there's, some basic categories under the definition of cannabis activity under state law: cultivation, manufacture, distribution, retail, lab testing. So depending on what your business model is, your costs are going to be different, right? For example, under the category of retail, if you want to open up a storefront versus a delivery only, the costs associated with your overhead are going to be different. So once again, it goes to your point of knowing what it is that you want to do. The paperwork, for the most part at the local, well, let me start with the local level. The first thing that you should be focusing on if you want to start a cannabis business is finding a city or a county in which you want to headquarter your business. There are 468 municipalities and 58 counties in the state of California, all with their own separate set of rules for cannabis activity, okay? So you need to know that the city that you put your business in is going to be a champion of your business and not pull the rug out from under you after you've built out your infrastructure, Calaveras County.
Oh, I was going to just say that. No.
Okay.
Calaveras.
So, one, find a municipality, a city or a county that has local regulations that address the specific business model that you are looking to open. When you're doing your analysis of the local rules, pay attention to the tax structure, okay?
Yes.
Because businesses are responsible for the local tax, the state tax, and guess what? You still have to pay federal tax even though cannabis is still a Schedule I drug under federal law. HR 1227, please check it out. We need to end federal prohibition, okay? So pay attention to the tax structure. I am not a tax expert. Those issues you need to go to a tax attorney, somebody like Matt Cumin. He can guide you on that tax stuff. Not me. Don't call me. Okay, please. I don't know. So
no one wants to touch that. So that's a business that anybody in here wants to get into.
We need tax attorneys in this space. We really do. Okay? And not just a CPA, but a tax attorney. Somebody who's going to be concerned about your Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate yourself, because everything you write on that tax form is a statement that can and will be used against you in a court of law. Okay?
No, you're right.
Yes.
So, one, find the locale. Find a locale that's going to be a champion of your business. The beautiful thing about cannabis is that it takes me places I never thought I would go, okay? Like, now I'm paying attention to who sits on the Board of Supervisors in Alameda County. How are they voting? So pay attention not only to the regulations, but who's in control, okay? Who's on the city council, who's on the board of supervisors. Then you prepare for the state, which has its own separate, rules and regulations with regard to, are you going to be adult use or medicinal? But now the new regulations, just came out, so I don't even know. I have to go home and read it tonight. Welcome to my
came
world.
out today. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one has a weekend now.
No. Weekend's gone. Before, have your business plan, have an idea of your pathway where you're going, but really important for this industry is pay attention to local law. That is my primary advice.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That is a good one. But like we were just talking about, there's still state law. So with LaWanda, you've been helping people get through their entire process, right? So that's local and state.
Yes.
Right? Can you describe where we are in the state process right now? Because it's unique since they had emergency regs that came out today, which means that they're not actually stable, but people have been going through some kind of process. Can you describe what that has been like?
Yes, I'll do my best.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy.
Well, I'll just give you examples of what I'm seeing. So, because a lot of people on January 1 applied for their temporary state license, their temporary state license, now what they're facing is that those licenses are about to expire. And so they have to hurry up and apply for their full state permit in order to get that 90-day extension to keep their license alive. Especially, this is key if they're operating. If they're not operating, it's not that big of a deal. But if they are operating, it's a huge deal, because if they don't get this 90-day extension, then they have to stop operating and wait until they get their full state permit. That is like a killer by itself. So what I'm doing is helping people get the insurance that they need, because you have to have a surety bond and just regular business insurance. And so that's been a hurdle. And then there's also the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, which is boring, but they want to have it. And they want to know everything. They want to know, like, what's your inventory procedures? How are you going, what's your record keeping procedure? How are you going to keep the product from, being secure? How are you going to make it secure? So you have to spell all of it out on paper, and this has to be a part of the application. So that's what I'm seeing, is gathering this information quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Right. Yeah, it is quick, fast, and in a hurry too, because everything came out so quickly all of a sudden. Like some of the ordinances happened in a 90-day process, and it was just fast. Everything was super fast. So, which brings us to present time, where the state is looking at emergency regulations. And I know a lot of you don't know what that is, because I didn't know what that was until I started doing cannabis stuff. And like Kendra was saying, it takes you into places that you never thought that you were going to be at all. Like this Monday, I was giving testimony at a joint hearing of the Senate, and the panel was called "Stakes Are High." They're having so much fun in the state government. They have never had so much fun naming these things in their life. So, but you never thought that was going to ever happen, right? So, for anybody who wants to pick this up, what are emergency regs, and then what does that mean for us?
The audience probably knows.
Want me to do it?
I know, I don't know.
Just quick. Yeah. Basically, the government is supposed to, whenever they regulate an area, they're supposed to put it out to the public, and they're supposed to give us a certain amount of time to comment on it. That's part of our democratic process, and it's good. It's good to have a comment period. With emergency regs, the government's basically, we got to do this fast, so we're only going to give you a little tiny comment period, and then we're going to approve them. So basically, emergency regs have a very short window to do a comment, and it gives the government some flexibility to get them in place. And so now they would put the emergency regs into place, and they were going to come out with their, final regulations, and they just are not ready for that. So they're coming out with a next set of emergency regulations, and they're tweaking it a little bit, and they're going to give us a little window of period to comment on it, and then they're going to put those in. And so our government is working, and as Jim Wood, who's an assemblyman from the North Coast, says, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And that's basically what is happening. And I and others like Kendra and else are screaming at the government every day, telling them that they have basically screwed the pooch. I wrote this on a Facebook quote thing the other day. And now they have to fix it, and we're going to help them fix it. And that's the message. And I think there's a little bit of listening going on in the government, a little bit, So.
They are kind of listening, because I read, I had 5 cups of coffee this morning, and I read through at least half of the emergency regs. And then I got some clarification from other folks tonight. And something that they did listen to is that they put together the A and M. Yes. So we only have to put 1 application in versus 2 applications in, which is a huge win.
That is huge.
Because they were about to charge us twice, and that would have been crazy. It was. The fee structures are absolutely ridiculous. It would double the cost. And like, say for retail, it would have been $20,000 times 2, because it would have been 2. So it doubles the cost. You had, anyways, horrible for us.
So that's what regulations are.
Right. So it's like extortion? Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Not really. You can tell that I'm the radical one. All right. Yeah. So this is where we are right now. We are in a very unique time period. It's not. We have not necessarily seen it in our lifetime, right? Alcohol prohibition and its problem solving happened before we got here. So this is the problem of our lifetime, right? Of trying to figure out how to make something that works, right? And then, like, I think everybody reiterated many times is that it's a work in progress, and that we have to stay engaged, and we have to stay activated, and we have to stay on top of it. So before we move to questions from the audience, where would you like to see the cannabis industry in the next 5 years, and what are your top, 2 things to be able to get us there? Whoever wants to take it.
So what I would like to see is definitely the diversity, the community's color, but for more than that, I think, a lot of people use social responsibility, that word, very lightly, and I think this industry has the unique ability, we're about medicine. This came from people fighting for patients' rights to access. This came from people, farmers, giving up their, property just to give medicine away. So ultimately, they're capitalizing something and making it a monetary thing that we've been trying to give to the world as health and medicine. And ultimately, that affects our communities a lot. We're the ones taking these prescription drugs, and that's the legal dope, and this is just natural ways of being able to heal our community. So ultimately, what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see the companies in this have an effect on their community. So meaning that the reason it's important that our companies are in this, our people are in this, and that our communities get the advantage of this is so that those companies can support after-school programs, breakfast programs for low-income people, retraining programs for blacks and Latinos and Native people coming out of jail for marijuana and other related offenses, to get them into something where we can gain back some of the generational wealth that was lost, that we're losing every day. Our grandparents built something and we don't have the ability to keep it. We're losing. You're seeing Oakland get gentrified, San Francisco, Bayview, Hunters Point get gentrified, and we need to stop this. And the only way we can stop this is by providing economic opportunity. So I want to see us as a community, us as businesses get together and really provide an impact. Stop waiting for government grants. Stop waiting for help from the government, because they're not going to help us. It's up to us to fund these programs and make this effect on our community. So that's really what I want to see. I want to see that change.
That. Now, why do I have to go after you? It sucks. really good. I couldn't have put it better. I'll add a couple more things. You know, every time, you know, government acts and markets are at play, you know, there's just winners and losers. And unfortunately, you know, the losers seem to fall disproportionately, you know, on people who've already been shit on, you know. And so what I'm very interested in seeing in this industry, and I'm working on it, is try to level this playing field a little bit and try to get the government to see that some of the things they're doing are disproportionately impacting the communities of color once again. Like, you try to fix it and then you're fucking it up, you know? Like look at, you know, it's like I had a really disturbing conversation with someone in a very important government agency, and I said, well, who are your policy people advising you on the policies that are behind all this? And they said, oh, we don't have any policy people, we're just doing it ourselves. And I'm like, come on, you know, this is really, it has to be thought through. So creating that level playing field so that we don't wipe out, you know, the small farmers and people, you know, entrepreneurs, and this is a real opportunity for communities who have been kept out of these capitalist marketplaces to really come in, entrepreneur, own their own businesses, because small businesses are just so important, and they keep the capital flowing in the community, and that's what we need, you know. So, and picking up on your point, we're gonna have a drink. I'm gonna smoke later, right? It's when you talk about doing it ourselves, there's actually a very concrete model for that, and it's called, ironically, I don't want to confuse it with what we had to go through with the last 20 years of cannabis, but it is cooperative models. It is, you know, farmers coming together to market. You know, Sunkissed Orange is a farmers cooperative made up of thousands of orange growers. I mean, there is strength, there's democratic, economic democracy that we can learn if we shed our reliance on a capitalist model that encourages us to do it all ourselves. You know, I can only do it myself this way, and I have to do it, and then I want all the money. No, we have to walk our talk about redistributing income inside our communities. We can have fun with our businesses, but we can do things cooperatively, and there's so many ways to do it. And I've spent a lifetime setting up and helping people run cooperatives, and I think we do have to look to each other and shed ourselves of this capitalist germ of, oh no, it's all me and I want it all. And I think we have to really look at that. You know, this is about us. Look at all around the room. Look at the people next to you. This is about us. This is about all of us together. We will only survive together. If we don't, we're gonna wipe each other off the planet. And it's wrong. We can start it right now.
Yeah. It's literally like, yeah. How many of you guys watch Game of Thrones? Okay, well, that's enough to know the reference. So it's basically like the Night Walkers are coming. And we're the people on the wall, and we're trying to let everybody know that we need to get together and, like, let their little fiefdoms die, because, like, if we don't, then, like, these magical creatures that don't die are going to take us. So
It's hard because we're not
I'm
really
kind of a nerd
trained.
like that. Now you guys know. Okay, so
You know, we're not really trained that way.
right. LaWanda, how about you? What do you want to see in the next 5 years, and how do you think we can get there?
See, in the next 5 years, what I want to see is many of our businesses stick around and be around for the long haul, especially because I think that we can create those jobs and we can create the community. I mean, basically, everything that they've said, I just want to emphasize the fact that you don't necessarily have to have a permitted business to get in the cannabis industry. You can also bring all of your skills like bookkeeping, you know, if you have a trimming business, we can create a robust local economy, you know, for ourselves. And I would really like to, I mean, I'm a dreamer, and I really want to see that people, we could just have safer communities where we're not killing each other, you know, anymore. That's what I really hope, that this industry can really like kind of turn the tide so that we can just love each other and respect each other a lot more and help each other out.
Thank you. Yeah. Eugene.
Ditto. So a lot of the work that I do is really focused on creating equitable access, right? And I think the ultimate kind of judge of that will not be how many people get permits in year one, but how many people are still involved and engaged in the industry in year 5, year 10, right? So how do we really set the stage to support these businesses' development over time, right, and dedicate the resources that are necessary to do that? I think that's number one. Number two, and the reason why I feel a sense of urgency really not only to do this work but to get it right, is that the places that we're thinking about, the places that we work currently, can really be models for other places in the country that have not done anything about this, right? I was in a place not too long ago, which I won't name, in which they have a very different attitude towards cannabis than the people in this room. And so we really have an opportunity, I think, if we do this right, if we incorporate these models of equitable access, to really show other people how it can be done.
Thank you.
And can I just say one thing? You know, and I really hope you guys working for government urge your governments to end and reduce taxes, because you're distorting the marketplace with the additional taxes, and
that's a whole nother panel, and it could take up like our whole day. That is a whole different.
There are policymakers, there are people who are smarter than all of us combined about tax policy, who understand tax policy, black markets. Please tell your people, go back and tell them, eliminate and reduce these taxes. They're killing the whole system they're trying to set up right now. I'm telling you all right now. It's a big deal. Big deal.
It's not a lie.
Yeah.
Raven.
Well, okay, so I feel like, speaking of taxes, we've talked about taxes, we've talked about capital, but I feel like what I would like in 5 years is a bank account.
Yes.
I think that'd be awesome, you know, if I could like have a bank where they don't call me and like, okay, we're shutting you down, come get your money. So I think that'd be great. I think that in order to have that, we as equity owners need to keep coming at the city and the state, because it's really going to be up to the city of Oakland and the state of California to figure this out for me, so that I can pay these taxes, so that I can, you know, raise capital and cash this loan check that one day I hope to get from the city. So that'd be awesome. And then, and I also like education for equity applicants. I think that San Francisco's program alludes to it. A lot of equity applicants are coming out of schools that didn't adequately support their education and growth. And so I feel like we're at a point where my business personally, like, we have our state license, we have our space, we're looking out now like, okay, we have to actually run a business and compete in a, $5 billion market, you know? So it's like, we're playing with like real people that have real knowledge. And so I'd love to see some sort of education for the equity applicants come with this program, because it's necessary, definitely.
Thank you.
So the banking was what I was going to say. It's extremely important. The other thing I would like to see are more women-owned businesses, okay? Specifically women farmers, okay? This whole industry begins and ends with the plant. We need women growing this plant, okay? The other thing I would like to see is we need to end federal prohibition, okay?
Yes.
I'm going to say this over and over and over again,
Yes.
okay? Please check out HR 1227 that is sponsored by Representative Barbara Lee from California and Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. We need to end federal prohibition.
Yes, thank you so much. And also on the state level, we have Senate Bill 1294, which would be a statewide pathway for an equity program. So these local programs that we've talked about, there's Senator Bradford from Inglewood that has proposed language for the state equivalent. So that's something that we all need to pay attention to as well. And as far as the banking thing, we had a wonderful conversation with Jan Owens from the Department of Business Oversight at the California Growers Association meeting. And she gave a very robust, at-length speech pretty much about what they would enforce upon on a bank and what they wouldn't enforce upon on a bank. And she said, FDIC insured banks, no bueno, that's not gonna happen, you're gonna get shut down. However, the state banks, which are the state chartered banks that are listed on the Department of Business Oversight, as well as independently insured banks that are also listed on that, that you can actually go in and bring in all of your information that you have that shows that you're a legitimate business. And if they shut you down, it's because they are more conservative than we would hope them to be. But there might be some ones that will actually take you on. So there is a potential pathway. She just said that just as long as they fill out their paperwork properly, they won't enforce upon it. It wouldn't be because you're a cannabis business. It would be because you inappropriately put in paperwork, or they inappropriately put in paperwork. But I have that all recorded. It's on Facebook.
Yeah, I need
so
that.
we can
I
actually
need that.
quote her on that. You can be like, "No, you actually said it." Like I just didn't. Yeah. Anyways, so before we shut down, I know the audience probably has some pressing questions. So I would like to take at least like 15 minutes worth of questions. This gentleman back there, do you want to come up this direction so I can actually get you to speak into the mic so everyone can hear?
So ultimately, the biggest issue is, as far as like the minority community, is they don't know the process of opening the business because of how whatever the situation it is, right? So most minorities don't know how to open a business. They don't know the loopholes, the rings, or whatever, the loops, or whatever they have to go through to open a business. And it is mostly about being misinformed or not informed overall. And the biggest problem with minorities is because they don't care to share information. And I'm from Chicago. So a lot of people, I mean, if you get something going, people, if they can get on your bandwagon, they're going for it. But here is a completely different story. People are very secretive and impersonal and selfish in some way, form, or fashion, right? Nevertheless, what most people don't understand is how, why, and what they need to do to get their dreams or whatever they're trying to do to take place.
Right.
And people don't care to give that information out because ultimately it's competition. And we shouldn't look at it in that manner, because if you don't make it and I make it, ultimately I'm like a basis for you to like try again.
Right.
And I don't know if we brainwashed or whatever the hell it is, but we just need to understand that.
Right. So, just very lightly, I didn't know anything about business until my brother, like especially for at least the cannabis business, until my brother got arrested and I took over his company. And I literally YouTubed Harvard Business Review lectures, and I just listened to those quite a bit. And then most recently, I actually signed up for services at the Renaissance Entrepreneur Center, which is a free service that actually does business coaching. And so that's what I did in order to learn anything about business, for that matter, because I'm an artist, and artists and business don't usually get along. So it was an interesting process, but that's there are free services out there that to teach you step by step how to get a business off the floor, and it's free.
What the breakdown is not having the information.
Yes. So we need to get it. We need to get it more widely spread to the public. Does anybody have an idea of how to make that happen?
Well, I was just going to also add to that, if you go to the City of Oakland's website, particularly the Cannabis Permits website, there's links to the Equity Boot Camp, which is free online training to write your business plan, to figure out how to apply for the permit, all the free resources you need to actually walk you through the steps. You just got to go on the City of Oakland's website.
Okay, honestly, I was supposed to be a motivational speaker, but I became unmotivated because all the anger and discontent that I received from like everybody else on the coast. Because it's fucked up. I mean, honestly,
I agree.
It's fucked up.
There's a lot of trauma that exists within our communities that makes it very, very difficult to get started. And that is a true statement. And we've also not had this information distributed in the way that it actually should have been distributed to all of us. And I agree with you, sir, completely, 120%.
I do security at a club on Thursday. I do.
No, but
Do we have another question? Thank you.
Because I
Yeah.
like to go hang out.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
but thanks,
Thank you.
thanks.
Do we
It's
have?
okay. Well, come talk to us. You know what? Come talk to us after, because anyone here in the panel is going to stay around.
Do we have 2 more
We're gonna talk
questions
to
from
you.
the audience? Anybody?
You got it. It's
It's not shared like it
Well,
I agree.
It's going to be doing therapy as we go forward. We're going to fix
We-
it. That's
it-
the game.
I just want to say, and that's why it's important for functions like this. We need the community. We need our professionals within our communities to provide these resources for our business members. If you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you have other business. Like,
Hey, come on.
we need you
Quiet.
to stand out and provide these resources for this, because this is a big problem with the equity with equity applicants, is that we if you did go to jail, or if you were in one of these police beats, or you did go to one of these schools, you're not going to have those educational levels that you need in order to get this information. And it's not something that's easy, and those are some of the things that people like Nina and myself are trying to bring out. But we need the community support in providing these resources. We need you guys out there to provide whatever resource it is to help these equity incubators build their business.
And on that note, really quickly, I'd like to thank Hip Hop for Change for creating
Yes.
this space so that I could come up here and show you my face and share my knowledge with you, and
you.
call me.
Yes.
All right. Anybody have any final statements for the audience?
Does anyone have another question?
Anyone?
Okay, but I'm going to hold the microphone.
Good job. There you go. I'm an equity applicant in Oakland, and hey, bro, need to chill. So I'm an equity applicant in Oakland, and I seen a lot of people reach out to me as like they're starting cohorts and things of the sort, but I see that there are people up here who are already in the process or are part of the process. Is there any cohort that you guys are coming together to create so that the information can get to everybody who needs it? Because I find a lot of the information, but I know it's not a lot of people who research the way that I research, and they get discouraged because they can't access the information. So as a unit of us here, is there anybody connecting together so that we can have our own cohort?
Thanks.
That's a good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start and say that Community Gardens, we work with another equity team by the name of
Could
New
people
Life.
be quiet, please?
And we run a program called Green Huddle, which helps people qualify and understand how to qualify and get into the equity program. I also have an email list that I keep that we can connect later, and I just like email people information like the new regs and things like that. So I think like it sounds kind of weird, but I think it's up to you to create your cohort. And so I welcome you to like connect with us, and like we connect you with our people, because that's kind of like what it's turning into right now. It's like you got to kind of find your own people and have your accountability partners, because I know how it can get kind of lonely, because you're like trying to run your business and there's new regs coming out and it's like really confusing. And so we've definitely been trying to make those connections with other equity applicants to create that cohort, because I know how it goes, for real.
And I was just going to add to that, if you're going to be in any industry, in any business, you have to be around those people. So, like, there's large Facebook communities, there's Instagram communities that give information as to different functions going on, different groups that are getting together. I work with Green Huddle. They provide classes and that help teach you certain things. So we're kind of still at the grassroots of this, trying to make those, but that's how we build those, is by getting you guys into these functions, and we make those connections and provide those resources to each other and actually make it happen.
And one of the things that, if you go to our website, which is officeofcannabis.sfgov.org, you can input your email address. One of the obligations that existing medical cannabis dispensaries made was to create an equity plan where they created certain obligations to the community. We distribute some of that information through our listserv. So if you sign up, you will get access to that information, right? So whether it's cultivation classes, business plan development, all that information we share through our distribution list.
And I just want to say one thing, that the years and decades and centuries of racism and discrimination has really created a problem of isolation in communities. And so part of what this panel does, part of the energy, part of being here, this is a great event. I love this venue and the energy. And Nina, thank you for moderating like this. It's so awesome, It's like, we're gonna create community, you know, like, and you have to take the step though. You have to get over whatever that fear is in you. You know, you got to go look at just click on the damn website and start there and talk to one of us. There's a lot of people here tonight, so don't be, face your fear and face the fact that, yeah, the isolation was not you. It didn't come from you. It was created to separate you and keep you powerless.
So,
Remember that. That's what they're doing.
Before we end this panel, I just want to give you guys kind of a homework assignment. It's easy because you can get it done before you leave this venue. Get 5 people's phone numbers.
There you go. That's smart. Thank you.
Or IGs or emails, whatever you feel the best to be able to connect with people. But I know for a fact that there's a lot of amazing humans in this room that have so many different skill sets. So please connect with each other before you leave this venue tonight. Thank you all for your time, and give it up for our panel.
Thank you.